Tonight on Y News. The National Housing Authority postpones the eviction of kadamay occupants in the housing units in Pandi, Bulacan. Human rights advocates are set to seek help from the United Nations over extrajudicial killings in the country. The Philippine National Police arrest an Indian national and 3 Filipinos allegedly members of a kidnap for ransom group operating in Central Luzon.
Malacañang lambase a New York Times documentary video as a well-funded demolition campaign against President Duterte. Vaccinations against yellow fever are picking up in Brazil amid a new outbreak. And a fun-filled celebration kickoff in France for the 25th year anniversary of Disneyland in Paris.
Y News begins now.
From the UNTV News and Rescue Command Center, this is Y News with Angelo Castro III and Darlene Basingan.
Good evening. Agrarian reform beneficiaries might soon have their land for free. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
The government and National Democratic Front peace panels are expected to include in their agenda the free land distribution to farmers. Should both sides agree, land distribution would soon become less burden for farmers. According to Agrarian Reform Secretary Rafael Mariano, the government still has around 65 billion pesos unpaid balance for farmers' land amortization. Land areas distributed to farmers may still be fortified and recalled if they won't be able to pay for the land on a certain period.
Pag po strictly pinatupad yun yung 122,000 ARBs natin nanganganib na mailit yung kanilang lupa.
Mariano said a new law such as the Genuine Agrarian Reform Bill is necessary to realize the implementation of the free land distribution. Currently, there are at least 600,000 hectares of land that are still subject for distribution. Should the bill pass, around 100,000 hectares of land could be added to it.
Ito po yung magbibigay ng full authority sa DAR na yung hindi pa nasasaklaw na mga lupa, mga hacienda at mga plantasyon ay maaari pong masaklaw.
Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Members of militant group Kadamay still refuse to vacate the public housing units in Pandi, Bulacan. Leslie Lungboan will tell us why.
Today is the deadline of the eviction notices issued by the National Housing Authority or NHA to members of militant group Kadamay who are occupying public housing units in Pandi, Bulacan. Despite this, the Kadamay members still refuse to vacate the public housing units and even barricaded the area to strengthen their security. They barricaded with bamboos and rocks the way to the housing units to ensure no one from the government and even media can enter. The leader of the said group says they're ready to fight the government's eviction.
Nasa kanila na po yun kung dahasin nila kami. Lalaban kami hanggat kaya namin. Lalaban po kami talaga.
Wala pong mangyayaring sakitan kung hindi po mangunguna ang mga militar at pulis.
Since March 8, 20,000 members of Kadamay have occupied 5,700 units in 7 project sites of the NHA. Based on the housing agency's data, only 324 members of the group have agreed to follow the eviction notice in exchange for granting them the houses. But until now, NHA admits not knowing still where to relocate the families they ordered to vacate the houses. Leslie Longboan, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The National Housing Authority postpones the implementation of the eviction notice given to Kadamay members occupying government housing units in Pandi, Bulacan. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
The officials of the National Housing Authority or NHA will not push through with the eviction of members of militant group Kalipunan ng Damayang Mahihirap or Kadamay from the government housing units they currently occupy in Pandi, Bulacan since March 8.
Magkakaroon po ng profiling ng mga nag-okupa sa 7 pabahay natin sa Bulacan. Okay? Magsisimula ang profiling sa April 3.
The housing agency released the decision after its dialogue with the House Makabayan Bloc and officials of the militant group.
Isi-shift po from eviction to yung profiling and validation.
It will also give the Armed Forces of the Philippines and Philippine National Police Housing Board until May 30 to create a final list of the families who can legally occupy the said government housing units. The NHA awaits the budget it will receive in 2018 for the construction of additional government housing units. The additional units will house more than 50,000 informal settlers. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Malacañang calls a New York Times documentary about President Duterte as a well-funded demolition campaign. Rosa Licos will tell us why.
The Malacañang slams the 15-minute clip documentary published by a US-based daily New York Times as a well-funded demolition work by the critics of the president. The video features vigilante killings in the country. Several articles are also written discussing the anti-drug war of President Rodrigo Duterte. Presidential spokesperson Undersecretary Ernesto Abella says it is obviously sponsored by particular personalities and politicians who wants President Duterte to be ousted. The Daily also tries to create global outrage against the Philippines, which is trying to resolve peace and order issues like the illegal drugs addiction. Meanwhile, Malacañang also defends the recent statement of President Duterte.
Well, I am sorry. I have to clean up, and until such time mapatay ang mga drug lord, mawala ni sila sa dalan, pagabi maglakaw-lakaw mahurot. I'm sorry.
The Human Rights Watch says this statement of the president acknowledges that his war on drugs is a war against the poor. But Malacañang refutes this and explains that President Duterte means poverty is not enough reason to buy and sell shabu. Undersecretary Abella also said the HRW and similar groups should be more circumspect about meddling in the country's domestic affairs. Abella said it just shows their insensitivity to the culture of others. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
A human rights group will seek the help of the United Nations over extrajudicial killings in the country. Mon Hokson will tell us why.
Gusto lang namin i-correct yung maling reporting and
a group from the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines will go to United Nations office in Geneva, Switzerland. This is to seek the help over the incidents of extrajudicial killings in the Philippines. Amado Picardal, the Executive Secretary of the CBCP, says many of the kidnap victims of alleged extrajudicial killings approach them for help. Many of them believe that EJ cases in the country are state-sponsored.
There has been a pattern, since Davao pa, hanggang ngayon, and we have mga inside information.
Picardal's group also believes that the Palit Ulo scheme is true. Such incidents, according to him, are proven by witnesses and the confession of some high-ranking police officials. But for its part, the Commission on Human Rights said they have not received any of such cases. Even the alleged state-sponsored killings have not been established.
We have not found out any to that effect, any findings to that effect that it's state-sponsored or there is a policy of government against that.
The Commission will come up with a report on drug-related killings this month of May, but Picardal's group is not convinced that the report would help solve the problem. Thus, they are determined to seek the assistance of the international community. The group from CBCP is still gathering documents that they will take to the United Nations.
Walang mangyari dito eh. The CSR, okay, they can do investigation, pero up to that lang, di ba? Wala namang teeth talaga ang CSR, di ba?
Mon Hokson, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The Philippine National Police accuses the media for misleading information on the killings caused by the administration's drug war. Lea Ilagan will tell us why.
Gusto lang namin i-correct yung maling reporting and so that the Filipino community as well as the international community cannot be misled by false reporting. Pawang katotohanan lamang, these are facts and datas that were honestly recorded and interpreted.
PNP Chief Police Director General Ronald Bato de la Rosa disputes the figures that several media groups and the Vice President mentioned on the number of drug-related deaths since President Rodrigo Duterte took office. According to the PNP data, there are 1,398 drug-related killings, while 6,011 cases are still under investigation. 828 killings were the result of feud between families or clan, conflict in property ownership, personal or job-related conflicts, and terror activities. General Bato says the term extrajudicial killings did not originate from the PNP. He noted it is even inappropriate to use such a term in referring to death in legitimate police operations.
In the absence of any proper investigation, nobody can rightfully conclude these homicides to be extrajudicial.
Despite this, the PNP chief boasts of good performance of his men, noting the controversial data never affected their job. De la Rosa also hopes Vice President Leni Robredo will correct what he claims as wrong information she mentioned about the government's anti-drug war. Leia Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
The ship captain of the hijacked tugboat on Thursday has now returned to his family. Grace Casin will tell us why.
Sa lakas ng loob ko na tumakas ako. Palit-palit sila, may 2, 3, 5, ganyan. Palit-palit sila ng mag-ano sa akin, mag-abang sa akin, magbantay.
Layo na mo sa shoreline?
Layo na namin pinakabundok na.
Aurelio Agak-Ak, the captain of Super Shuttle Tugboat 1, together with the ship's chief engineer, were kidnapped last Thursday. Agak-Ak accounted that the Abu Sayyaf group separated them. He was brought in the mountains. Because of the continuous operations of the AFP, he was able to escape last Friday evening when the guards were deep asleep. It was at dawn when members of the civilian volunteer organization found Agak-Ak. He was turned over to the Philippine Navy and was brought to Zamboanga City. He returned to his family in Cebu the next day. He hopes for his colleagues to be rescued as soon as possible. The AFP Western Mindanao Command will tighten their security even more in Sebago Island due to some incidents of sea-jacking on the island.
Our strategy now is we will place a permanent sa Sebago Island. So yung Sebago Island kasi is very critical yan. Yan talaga ang tinadaanan ng mga barko. So ang ano namin is we will make sure that meron kami ganyan, meron kami cover.
Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
PNP Chief Ronald De La Rosa orders to place Police Chief Inspector Melvin Madrona under restrictive custody. This came after Madrona battered a motorist inside the QCPD Station 5 and was captured by CCTV. De La Rosa says the move would help ensure that Madrona will not influence PNP's investigation on the case. At the same time, De La Rosa says the victim will not feel threatened.
Inibisigahan na, pinailan na ng kaso, under restrictive custody para hindi niya ma-influensyahan yung ongoing investigation na ginagawa ng CITF.
The PNP, CITF, and PNP Internal Affairs Service are also investigating other cops on duty in QCPD Station 5 on the day the incident took place. Members of a kidnap for ransom group were arrested by authorities in Central Luzon. Grace Casin will tell us why.
Authorities arrested 4 members of a kidnap for ransom group operating in Nueva Ecija, Bataan, and Pampanga. Among those arrested is Gurmet Singh, an Indian national and the leader of the said group. Also arrested are Filipinos Jeffrey Cabading, Francis Castro, and Gregorio Peña. One of their victims is Hanvinder Singh, who was abducted in Llanera, Nueva Ecija last March 9. The suspects initially demanded for 10 million peso ransom in exchange for the victim's freedom. However, the demanded amount was later lowered to 600,000 pesos.
Baba na yung sa ban. 4 tao. Tsaka dalawa doon motor, tsaka yung isa Pilipino, isa Bumay. Uhuli na sila. Tapos dampot doon na sa lagay nila ban.
The families of the victims sought the help of authorities that later led to the arrest of the suspects. The police was able to recover from the abductors the 600,000 pesos ransom money, grenades, guns, and ammunition. The suspects are now facing multiple charges. Authorities are now looking to Kikar Singh, another member of the said Kidnap for Ransom group. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
The alleged mastermind behind the so-called Rent-Tangay scam, Rafaela Anunciacion, has refuted the complaints filed with the Department of Justice. Meanwhile, 29 victims have decided to withdraw their complaints. Roderick Mendoza will tell us why.
The Department of Justice today resumed the preliminary probe on the so-called Rent-Tangay scam. Alleged mastermind Rafaela Anunciacion refuted the allegations of victims from Bulacan. She claims they never went there to rent cars.
Alam nila na hindi sila nagsasabi ng totoo.
Another respondent says the car owners were compelled to file charges against them. She claims it is a condition given by PNP Highway Patrol Group before the vehicles could be released.
Kapalit daw nung bawi ng sasakyan complain.
HPG Calabarzon said nothing about this. 29 car owners have already withdrew from the case. Mang Narciso says pursuing the complaint will just take more of his time.
Nakuha na po yung unit Mrs. ko ang nag-ano nun pinakata sa akin yung unit
But this doesn't mean the respondents are now off the hook.
It will depend on the evidence to be submitted by the Regional Highway Patrol Group as well as the other individual complainants.
Preliminary investigation resumes this Friday. Roderick Mendoza, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Next on Y News. President Rodrigo Duterte prefers a simple celebration for his 72nd birthday tomorrow.
Court sentences a Singaporean couple for starving their Filipina house help.
Y News will be right back.
Y News would like to thank the following.
On his 72nd birthday, President Rodrigo Duterte prefers a simple celebration. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
Tomorrow will be the first time for President Rodrigo Duterte to celebrate his birthday as the chief executive of the country. The president is already 72 years old and he said he has no plans to grandly celebrate his birthday and wishes for the country's prosperity.
I only ask God that give me a little bit of time, a little strength to surmount the problems of the country and that I'd be able to, not really to solve but maybe mitigate some of the rigors of governance. People will understand what I'm doing.
Presidential spokesperson Undersecretary Ernesto Abella says President Duterte is used to celebrating his birthday simply with family and friends. The president is also excited to spend a day with his grandchildren.
I would be very glad to spend my time with my newest grandson, Stone, and the rest of my children and grandchildren. That would have been the greatest gift that I can ask in this planet.
President Duterte was born on March 28, 1945. He is the oldest elected president and one of the longest-serving city mayor in the history of the country. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
An election lawyer insists that President Rodrigo Duterte's suggestion to appoint barangay officials is unconstitutional. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
According
According to Attorney Romulo Macalintal, the President's proposal to just appoint and not elect barangay officials will necessitate an amendment of the Constitution. Macalintal explains it is stated in Section 8, Article 10 of the 1987 Constitution that local officials undergo the process of election. That is why they are called elective officials.
With due respect to the advices ng Pangulo, yan ay hindi maaaring gawin sapagkat sa ilalim ng ating saligang batas, maliwanag na ang barangay officials ay elective local officials.
If the President is decisive to push for the proposal, he can ask the Congress to amend the Local Government Code of 1991.
Amyendahan mo ang saligang batas na kung saan nagbibigay ng kapangyarihan sa Pangulo o sa sinuman na mag-appoint na lamang ng local elective officials.
For its part, COMELEC is still waiting for the directive of the President whether the barangay and SK elections be postponed on October.
We have to study that matter carefully, but eventually it will be Congress that will need to pass a law in order to postpone the elections.
Meanwhile, Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre II insists that it is not unconstitutional to postpone the October 2017 barangay polls. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The Japanese government delivered 2 of the 5 TC-90 surveillance planes to the Philippines today. Marge Pelayo will tell us why.
The Philippines has received 2 TC-90 surveillance aircraft from Japan. The leasing agreement was part of the previous Aquino administration's effort to help improve the Philippines' maritime capabilities amid growing tensions in the South China Sea. Japanese State Minister for Defense Kenji Wakamiya says the planes signify Japan's commitment to help with security-related issues in the Asia-Pacific region.
フィリピンは我が国のシーレーンに面する地政学的にも大変重要な国であり、アジア太平洋地域において南シナ海情勢をはじめとする多くの安全保障上の課題が存在する中、我が国とフィリピンが地域の平和と安定のために協力をするということは、この意義がますます高まってきております。
The next 3 aircrafts will be sent to the Philippines before March 2018. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana says the planes will be used for various missions.
These planes are expected to enhance our country's capacity in maritime security, as well as provide the Philippine Navy the needed air asset for their other missions, such as humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, transportation and maritime domain awareness, maritime air surveillance, and intelligence surveillance reconnaissance, ISR.
Tensions in the region have escalated with China's military activities and maritime claims in the South China Sea, a strategic waterway which the Philippines and several other Southeast Asian nations have also been claiming. Marge Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board stresses that it cannot just order the stoppage of Uber and Grab operations as requested by cab drivers. Joe Anano will tell us why.
Board member attorney Eileen Lizada explains it is beyond the authority of the Land Transportation, Franchising and Regulatory Board or LTFRB to suspend or stop the operation of transport network companies or TNCs.
Because even the department order states that we will await legislation from Congress.
It can be recalled the Transportation Department has allowed the operation the transport network companies as addition to the type of public transport in the country. Several groups of cab drivers gathered in front of the LTFRB earlier to call for a stop in the operations of Uber and Grab.
Katulad namin may prangkisa yan eh. Sila wala. Bakit sila nakakapag-operate? Ba't pinapayagan ng LTFRB? Samantalang kami pag walang prangkisa, huli.
The taxi drivers complain of losing huge sum of revenue due to intense competition with Uber and Grab. From 700 pesos a day, the cab drivers say they earn now only about 500 pesos daily from a whole day operation. Attorney Lizada clarifies the LTFRB can control only the application and fares of the TNCs.
In the meantime, doon sa kanilang mga presyo, para hindi na magse-search ng sobra-sobra.
Based on LTFRB's data, 30,000 applications for TNCs remain pending in their office. Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
40 artificial coral reefs are installed in a marine protected area in Subic, Zambales. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
Authorities once again installed artificial coral reefs in the ocean of Barangay Calapacuan to further improve its maritime life. 40 artificial coral reefs and 5 culvert fragments are installed in the ocean. According to the reef's caretakers, there had been significant changes since they started rehabilitating the area.
Meron tayong giant clam sanctuary. Malalaki po yung taklobo natin dyan ngayon.
Thus, policeman believes the protected area must be guarded at all times.
Umunlad ulit yung marine life natin dito sa Subic at pangalagaan nito para sa darating na panahon yung ating mga anak, ating pamilya may makakain pa.
Fishermen and divers in the area are glad about the program which they have helped them in their livelihood.
Dito halos yung mga isda maliliit eh. So ngayon nagbalikan yung mga isda malalaki. Talagang napapabuti po ang ating karagatan.
Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The policy on the use of mercury in schools is now being studied. Leslie Longbowen will tell us why.
595 students, teachers, and personnel of Manila Science High School are undergoing medical examination. This after 60 milliliters of mercury was accidentally spilled on March 11. For this reason, the Department of Health says policy on the use of mercury in schools is being studied.
Babalangkatin na bunsod sa pangyayaring to, titingnan kung magkakaroon ng policy ngayon na ito ay iban o gamitin, pero ayon lamang sa mga kondisyon na nararapat at dapat sundin.
DepEd is also currently looking into the mercury spill to know whether negligence caused the incident.
The Department of Education meanwhile reminds schools to observe the safety guidelines in science laboratories to avoid untoward incidents.
Education Undersecretary Jesus Mateo says teachers should be prepared in case such accident happens.
Kailangan aware yung mga teachers natin teaching yung mga science, yung mga hazards doon sa science laboratory. Ano yung worst thing that might happen? Ano yung reaction kung sakali man may mangyari?
Among the bad effects of contact to mercury are dizziness and headache. It might also affect memory and organs of the body such as kidneys, liver, and heart. Leslie Lombowen, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasig City.
Militant group Migrante calls on the attention of the government to help Jennifer Dalquez. Dalquez is an overseas Filipino worker in the United Arab Emirates who is sentenced to death for allegedly killing her employer. Earlier, the Court of Appeals in Al Ain has deferred its decision on the case of Dalquez. This after one of the victim's children skipped the trial. The Al Ain court in February deferred the execution of Dalquez pending the decision of the victim's children whether to affirm the execution or opt for blood money. Dalquez may escape the death sentence if the victim's 2 children refuse to swear in court and ask for blood money instead.
A Singaporean couple sentenced for starving their Filipino house help are still to face another hearing. Marge Pelayo will tell us why.
A Singapore court on Monday sentenced a local couple for failing to provide their Filipina maid with adequate food, but the prosecution appealed the decision. 40-year-old Thelma Oyasan Gawidan weighed just 29.4 kilograms in April 2014. At the end of a period of around 15 months, she was not provided with adequate food as required by foreign manpower regulations, according to the prosecutors. Her employers, Lim Chun Hong, was sentenced to jail for 3 weeks and fined 10,000 Singapore dollars, while his wife Chong Sui Foon was sentenced for 3 months with no fine.
Clients, they feel a sense of relief. They were hoping to, in fact, commence their jail term, but in light of the appeal by the prosecution, that will have to be delayed.
The couple's lawyers said the nature of the offences are the first in Singapore.
The nature of the offences faced by my clients were the first of its kind in Singapore. That of depriving or not providing adequate food for their domestic helper.
The maximum penalty for the offense is 12 months imprisonment or a 10,000 fine or both. Separately, the couple paid the maid 20,000 Singapore dollars to settle against civil claims. Marge Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Coming up, Tanzanian albino children attacked for body parts seek medical care in the United States.
And couples in Thailand run for big money to fund their dream wedding.
More from Wine News after this break. Planned Parenthood views the withdrawal of the healthcare bill on Friday as a temporary reprieve, not the end of a threat to its existence. Jihan Malones will tell us why.
The National Health Organization Planned Parenthood would have lost federal funding under the sweeping healthcare overhaul legislation. Officials of the organization anticipate further attempts by Republicans to curb its participation in federally funded public health programs, a major source of its funding.
You know, we feel like it's a real victory for the millions of women and men in this country who are standing up to demand their access to health care not be taken away.
I was a proponent of the Obamacare to begin with. I mean, I know there's some results in the costs going up, but I think the alternative that the Republicans were proposing would not have addressed that issue anyways.
I'm happy that Planned Parenthood is still being funded.
In a major setback for Republican President Donald Trump, U.S. House of Representative leaders pulled the health care bill after a rebellion by Republican moderates, and the party's most conservative lawmakers left them short of votes. Democrats were unified against it. Jihan Malones, UNTV News and Rescue, New York, USA.
4 Tanzanian children with albinism arrived in the United States on Saturday for medical treatment. Sunny Cos will tell us why.
In Tanzania, people with albinism live in danger, like 15 years old Emmanuel Rutima suffered from superstition-driven attacks. He and 3 other children arrived on Saturday in the U.S., making return trip having outgrown prosthetics they got 2 years ago with the help of a charity, Global Medical Relief Fund. Emmanuel's arm was chopped off and the fingers of the other, and his attackers tried to pull out his tongue and teeth. That's why he speaks with difficulty.
You want to be given a new hand. Yes.
The children attend boarding school and live in so-called safe houses in Tanzania. They rarely go out in public because of fear.
You can see that all of them are injured. They're still traumatized. They don't trust anyone.
And by the end of their stay, you know, it was so heartwarming to know that we broke through that, you know, and they know that we're their friends.
The children are expected to stay about 2 months getting further medical treatment. United Nations official estimates at least 75 albino were killed in the East African nation between 2000 and 2015. According to the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, the body parts are traded in lucrative market for use in witchcraft. Reported prices ranges from $2,000 for a limb to $75,000 for a corpse. Sanicos, UNTV News and Rescue, New York, USA.
Vaccinations against yellow fever are picking up in Brazil. Health centers were opened on Saturday in Rio de Janeiro. An outbreak in recent months has killed at least 137 people, according to Brazil's health ministry. Scientists do not know why yellow fever is rebounding in a country that had all but eradicated the disease, especially in big cities. Since officials began monitoring the outbreak late last year, 424 cases of the disease have been confirmed. This is higher compared with just 15 in the previous 2 years. In addition to the cases confirmed since December, officials are investigating another 933 suspected cases.
Alejandro Valverde after tour of Catalina. Meanwhile, Colombia and Ecuador gear up for World Cup qualifier. Aaron Romero will tell us why.
In soccer, Ecuador will take on Colombia in a World Cup qualifying tournament in Quito, Ecuador on Tuesday. Ecuador is currently the 5th placer and seeks a leap to the 2018 FIFA World Cup in Russia. Colombia has just come off winning over Bolivia. Brazil sits on the top spot with 30 points. Uruguay comes next with 23. Argentina is third with 22 points ahead of Colombia and Ecuador. And in cycling, movie star team's Alejandro Valverde seals another title in the Tour of Catalonia title. This after the Spaniard won in Sunday's stage 7 of the race.
Y bueno, luego nos entendíamos, pero a medias, no bien del todo. Y hemos empezado el sprint mucho más lentos que los que venían detrás. Los de atrás venían mucho más rápidos. Y bueno, al final he ganado por los pelos.
Valverde edged past Colombia Jarlinson Pantano of Trek Segafredo, who finished second. Frenchman Arthur Vichot of the FDJ settled for third. Aaron Romero, UNTV News and Rescue, New York.
Health staff in a blood center in Ho Chi Minh City expressed their gratitude to our kasangbahays. Kathy Navarro will tell us why.
Doctors and the staff of Trung Tam Him Mau Nhan Dao, or the Humanitarian Blood Donation Center in Vietnam, were delighted with the participation of our kasambahays in the blood donation drive held by the hospital recently.
Các bạn Philippines đến trung tâm để hiến máu cứu người. Đây là lần thứ 2 trung tâm được đón đoàn các bạn. Thì trước tiên là xin cảm ơn cái tấm lòng của các bạn Philippines đã đến đây hiến máu để giúp đỡ những bệnh nhân của người Việt Nam.
Donors from Members Church of God International and some UNTV volunteers in Vietnam were able to give 20 bags of blood.
Các bạn để mà giúp cho chúng tôi khám tốt hơn. Và thay mặt trung tâm thì cảm ơn rất là nhiều đến các bạn Philippines và mong rằng các bạn tiếp tục đến đây hiến máu sau 3 tháng một lần.
Filipinos who participated in the blood drive were refreshed for the opportunity to do good through the activity.
Muna-muna nagpapasalamat ako sa UNTV sa pagkakataong tulad ng ganito na makapag-donate ng dugo. Muna-muna makagawa ng mabuti, ganoon din sa aking sarili, yung mga benefits po dito sa kalusugan.
Hindi lang po ito nagdudulot ng mabuting benepisyo para sa aking katawan, kundi para na rin sa mga pasyenteng nangangailangan ng dugo.
Despite being far from the Philippines, Filipinos in Vietnam continue to support the advocacy of UNTV and MCGI to be instrumental in helping those in need. Kathy Navarro for Serbisyong Kasambahay.
A fun-filled celebration kicked off in Disneyland in Paris, France on Saturday. June Garin will tell us why.
Disneyland Paris held a colorful parade to celebrate its 25th anniversary on Saturday, March 25th. Classic characters like Minnie Mouse and Captain Hook waved from floats to the crowd below. Meanwhile, American celebrities John Legend and Terry Hatcher joined the fun at the park and joined the parade and several other music and light performances. Disneyland Paris, owned by Euro Disney, employs 15,000 cast members.
Ce qui a changé pour nous, c'est les équipes qui ont mûri et qui aujourd'hui prennent toute leur ampleur dans la création et dans la production des spectacles. Donc là, c'est pour ça que c'est pour le 25e anniversaire, on a voulu sortir beaucoup plus de spectacles et de moments pour nos guests, nos visiteurs.
It opened its doors on April 12, 1992 for the first time. Visitors from around the world joined the festivities, saying Disneyland was the best place to let their inner child run wild.
We are collecting everything from Disney, and we love the fact that you can be like a child when you're an adult actually, but this is the only place you can be like a child.
Sympathique, ça change, et ouais, on voit les films Disney en vrai, très joli.
For the occasion, the park revamped the ride called Star Tours, taking visitors on a 3D tour through a galaxy far, far away. June Garin, UNTV News and Rescue, Paris, France.
Hundreds of couples race to win the ultimate prize to fund their dream wedding. Kat Dumaraos will tell us why.
Running of the brides in Thailand saw 250 couples race in a 4-kilometer run on Saturday to win the first prize worth around $28,000 to fund their wedding. Holding weddings can cost a lot of money, and so the couples were hoping for an impressive running performance and might see them come first in the race and pay for their big day. The race was won by the couple of 29-year-old Sirada Tamuana and her soon-to-be groom Sitichai Prasongsin, 27.
ได้ร่วมกันอย่างน้อยเราต้องวิ่งร่วมกันคือเมื่อกี้ก็บอกเจ้าบ่าวว่าวิ่งไม่ไหวแล้วคือแบบเจ้าบ่าวก็คอยให้กำลังใจว่าแบบอีกนิดเดียวต้องวิ่งให้ไหวอะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะเพราะว่าเราหวังกันไว้เยอะเหมือนกันนะ
Among other prizes, the winners will be paid for a cocktail wedding in Bangkok, free bridal gown and groom suit, and a sponsored honeymoon to Thailand's resort island Phuket, as well as a package stay in the Maldives. Kat Tumaraos, UNTV News and Rescue, Bangkok, Thailand.
Those are the reasons behind the news, March 27, 2017. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Reasons we delivered to you as they unfold. I'm Darlene Basingan.
Because we need to know. We will always ask why. Thank you for watching. Why News.